All right, hey there. We're going to take a look at cell boundaries, and we're going to talk about this as a pathway to homeostasis. We'll talk about the term homeostasis as we go through, but we want to make sure that we're understanding that we're always going to start with the idea of those cell boundaries. So that boundary, when we're looking at it, there's two boundaries we really look at. Cell membrane, which is going to be the one that's more complex that we work with, and then we're also going to talk about the cell wall. So let's backtrack and talk about the cell membrane first. So when we look at it, what's the purpose? Why is there a cell membrane? Why does it exist for the cell? The whole purpose is it's a barrier. Just like your skin is a barrier, the whole point is for regulation, for protection, for support. So if you go back to an analogy model, we talk about the human skin being very much like a cell membrane. It does regulate what enters. So your body, one of its number one line of defenses is your skin, just like a cell's number one line of defense is their membrane. So if you're looking at this membrane, we talk about the fact that it does protect, so it means that it is a barrier and it regulates what comes in and out. It also supports the structure of the cell itself. So remember, the animal cell is going to be the one that only has a cell membrane, does not have anything else for structure purposes. So its shape is going to be irregular in the fact that it doesn't have a set shape because of that membrane. It's not going to be exactly the same every single time. So let's talk structure. It is called semi-permeable. Semi meaning partially, permeable meaning that it allows for some things to go through. Think permeability. One of the analogies that I use when I talk about a cell membrane is when you think about the sandbox when you were a kid and you had that sifter. And you used to take that sifter and you'd shake it and you'd get the little rocks and little sand that would come through and the big rocks would stay on the top. That is semi-permeable. Some things can go through, some things can't. It depends by size, it depends by shape, and it depends by the material itself. It also has to do with, which we'll get into, homeostasis. Okay, the other part of structure that we want to make sure you get is this lipid bilayer. It's called a phospholipid bilayer. So if you're taking a look at it, this is our bilayer. It's two layers, that's why it's called a bilayer. You have your phosphate groups on the outside, and you have your lipid tails on the interior. Your lipid tails are going to be the ones that are hydrophobic, meaning they don't like water, where the outside phosphates do like water. So it's a love-hate relationship with water, and we'll get into that as well. So in addition, we also look at our cell membrane. Not only do we have this layer, we also have these proteins that are going to be embedded. Some of them are integral, meaning they all go all the way through. Some of them are peripheral, meaning they're going to be just on the outside edges, either towards the outside extracellular or intracellular, depending. And then we also have what are called channel proteins. So this has got a spot where it allows for material to pass through. In addition, we'll also have carbohydrates that act as receptor sites for them as well. So we've got a lot of things going on with the cell membrane, and it is the number one line that we use to get to where we need to go next. Okay, so our other barrier is a cell wall. So again, we'll talk purpose. What's the purpose? Support. That's actually the number one thing. The cell wall is actually going to be structure and support for the cell. Remember that if we're talking about a plant cell, they do not have structure interior. Their structure comes from the cell wall itself. So their interior structure is built by their exterior structure of those cells. So they don't have a skeletal system. They don't have a hydrostatic system. Instead, what they have is they have different types of cell walls that are thicker or thinner depending on where they are, and they build together to create that support and protection. So where are they? Well, this becomes an important factor when we're talking about the cell wall, because the cell wall is going to be found on the outside of the cell membrane. Cell walls are aren't just there by themselves. They always have a cell membrane that's used for that gating or that regulation. So they're always on the exterior of that. In what? So as you can see, in what we're talking about plant cells. So this one you've seen almost something identical to this when we were looking at our Elodea. So these are our block cells that we're talking about from our plants. In addition, cell walls are also found in prokaryotic cells, in bacteria. They look a little bit different and their structure acts a little bit different. We're going to focus primarily when we talk about cell walls, we focus a little bit more on eukaryotic cells, which means we're going to focus a little bit more on those plant cells. We'll talk a little bit about fungi cells as well as we get a little further in, but right now we're going to focus primarily on plant cells.